Derek Merrin is running for Congress here in Ohio's 9th against Marcy Kaptur. He's joining me now on the Scott Sand Show. Derek, it's always great to have you on.
Scott, it's good to be on.
So later this hour, I'm going to be talking to David Pepper about issue 1, about gerrymandering. Your district, District 9, has been redrawn, and it's perhaps the most favorable Ohio's 9th has been in a while for a Republican candidate.
Yeah, the Ohio 9th district is pretty evenly split between Republicans and Democrat, and all issue 1 is really a partisan grab by the far left to try to enshrine, Democrat districts and enshrine gerrymandering into the Constitution. And, they're just trying to confuse voters right now, but they're actually trying to put gerrymandering into the Constitution. So, as we look at what's happening on Capitol Hill this week, Congress, well, they're about to go on like a 7-week vacation for one thing. Through the election, they'll be gone, which, don't get me wrong, the less Congress works, sometimes that's for the better. But a temporary funding bill, a 3-month stopgap funding bill to be voted on today. They may have already cast the votes on this. Wouldn't surprise me if we see more Democrats than Republicans voting in favor of this. It's not been a very good year for Speaker Johnson, who upset many on the right when he did not include the SAVE Act in the stopgap funding bill. Your thoughts on how we're continuing to kick the can down the road? Well, I tell you, this is why I'm running for Congress, Scott. We have to get back to fiscal sanity in our country. There are over $1 trillion annual deficit a year. Our national debt's at $35 trillion. When Marcy Kaptur came into office, the national debt was around $1 trillion. So under her tenure, it's went from $1 trillion to $35 trillion. I've told people the debt problem is really a bipartisan issue. I mean, it's more the Democrats than the Republicans, but neither party has been able to really take it seriously. And the Democrats in the Senate right now, they won't pass any type of funding bill. And then, and then you have the Joe Biden who, won't balance the budget either. So we've got to get the Republicans in control of the Senate, but then you got to have, true conservatives like myself in Congress that are going to demand fiscal responsibility. I have a record of doing that in Waterville. I have a record of doing that in the state legislature, and we've got to get, the cost of living under control in this state. We've got to stop the printing presses of money and the devaluation of the U.S. currency, and we've got to get back to the core principles of our country and how our country was founded.
Do you think that Speaker Johnson, do you think Republicans should have held fast and forced a vote on the SAVE Act as well as part of this particular funding measure?
Well, they did, and it didn't pass. So, I mean, they tried that before. I believe almost not all of the Democrats, but the vast majority have voted against that. So they did have, and then a good number, several of the Republicans didn't vote for it, so they don't have the votes right now to get the SAVE Act through. So, I mean, if I'm fortunate enough to represent Northwest Ohio and defeat Marcy Kaptur, we're going to have another vote to, ensure that citizens are the ones voting in elections, and we don't, have the potential of legal immigrants, influencing our country's governance. Obviously, the economy remains the top issue with voters across the country, including here in Ohio's 9th. But immigration, I think, is right up there. And as outrageous as some of the memes were after the presidential debate about the dogs and cats and geese in Springfield, Ohio, just to our south, it has, I think, drawn attention to what is a growing problem. And I realize that these Haitian migrants in Springfield and other small cities in Ohio like Findlay are here, quote unquote, legally under temporary protected status, but that's all part of the overall Biden-Harris failed immigration policy. This could happen in Northwest Ohio, too. I just had Toledo Mayor Wade Kapscavage on. We know that the Lucas County Commission has made the county and the city of Toledo, quote unquote, welcoming cities. We could see this influx of, quote, legal migrants coming to Northwest Ohio as well. And the end game, obviously, is to flip some of these counties, some of these states from red to blue. You're exactly right. I mean, Marcy Kaptur and the progressive radical left want to put illegal immigrants ahead of United States citizens. And it's just a disgrace with what's going on. Scott, you might know I went down to the U.S. border last week, actually with Eric Trump's wife, Laura Trump, and a group called Polaris. And I talked to a lot of the local officials that have been dealing with the immigration nightmare. And it was really enlightening to see what is happening. They are literally, it's like a processing center right now on the U.S. border. So people come across the border. They're not fleeing from the Border Patrol. They're basically throwing their hands up in the air and saying, hey, take us into custody. And when those individuals are taken in custody, as long as, they don't, have a felony type of record, there have charter buses. I mean, I saw them. They have charter buses taking people to the Phoenix airport from Yuma. And these people have enough money to, purchase a plane ticket. And those that don't, there's other nonprofit organizations that are paying for their plane ticket. And they're allowed to fly anywhere they want in the United States. And they're given a piece of paper for a court date, 8 years from now. And that piece of paper allows them to legally travel.
I don't know what I'm doing 8 days from now, let alone 8 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, it's become a mockery. It's become a mockery of our immigration system. They're it's a mockery of the law. And in Yuma, to give you an example, under Trump, they said there was about 8,000 illegal immigrants coming in through that border crossing in Yuma a year. 8,000 under Trump. They said right now it's at 100,000. And a year ago, at one point, it reached over 300,000 people a year. Here's something else, Scott, I learned. Along Trump's wall, they've got a lot of cameras that are up to help the Border Patrol see people. And the Biden administration has never turned them on and won't allow them to come on. So we as taxpayers have, purchased, and they're on the polls of cameras to try to, have a virtual, in addition to the wall to help the Border Patrol. And Biden administration won't allow the cameras to be turned on. The law enforcement folks also talked to me about how the cartels are basically in full operational control of the border. No one walks through the desert through Mexico without basically being accompanied and have paid off the cartels. And our U.S. government, Marcy Kaptur, Sherrod Brown, and Biden have allowed this to happen and to basically allow the cartels to take over the border. And it's just an absolute disgrace.
Well, and part of the reason why we're not so comfortable knowing if the numbers of encounters is accurate is for that very reason. And you're 100% right. The cartels are controlling the human trafficking, the sex trafficking trade, but also the fentanyl coming into the country that's killing people in American families, Ohio families, and really having an impact on our economy as well.
Another thing, Scott, they emphasized to me is the labor trafficking, that they're getting these migrants into the United States, okay, and, they're starting to work, and then the cartels say, well, you're going to pay me, a part of your paycheck every month, or, we're going to physically harm you, or we're going to, harm your family back in Mexico. And so you have people, you have people in our community, that are basically just funneling the cartels. And this goes to the heart of the argument, because you hear a lot of people say, well, illegal immigrants, they're, doing jobs Americans don't want to do, or they're, at least we're getting some of their money. Well, this goes underneath that. If they're taking a lot of their money, they're just shipping it out of the country. It's not spent locally, and they're actually funneling it to cartels. The cartels are making billions and billions of dollars off this a year. And this type of violence, when their cartels, threaten each other and then threaten people that they've got into the country to do what they want to do, that violence is happening in America. That's why you can't allow open borders. That's why you can't allow millions of people to come across like this, because they bring many of their problems with them.
And part of the justification for the Haitian migrants in Springfield has been they were needed for the workforce. We know how many jobs are available in the state of Ohio as well. We're talking to Derek Merrin. He's running for Congress here in Ohio's 9th against Marcy Kaptur. You talk about jobs a lot when you're meeting with potential constituents across Northwest Ohio.
Well, I mean, Marcy Kaptur has, I say never met an illegal immigrant she didn't want to give an American union job to. And, for all the union members that in Northwest Ohio that are listening to this right now, I need your help. You have been sold out by Marcy Kaptur and the Democratic Party. They're putting illegal immigrants before you. They're allowing the illegal immigrants to take the carpenters' jobs. And it's a disgrace. And we have to secure our border. We got to get local law enforcement to be empowered by the federal government to start turning these folks over to ICE and to get them deported. We need to put American citizens first, and that's not too much to ask. And, that's why I'm running for Congress, is I've had enough of this. We got to secure the borders. We have to have fiscal responsibility. We need term limits in this country. We got to take on the political class. And Marcy Kaptur has a proven record of doing almost nothing. As you can see with the TV ads, if we're passing, one bill in 15 years, and
I think she got another through. I think she got another through this month. I forget what it was, but I think that's 6.
Oh no, that I'm glad you brought that up, because the Blade had Yeah, they had one that she's claiming she got through a couple days ago.
Right.
That she just put her name on as a co-sponsor. It wasn't actually her bill. She just put her name on as a co-sponsor and act like she's the one that introduced it when there was like 30 other co-sponsors. So completely disingenuous, completely fake. And we've got them on the run, Scott.
And
all they're doing right now is they're not working. All they're doing right now is lying about me.
We're talking to Derek Merrin here on the Scott Sancho. We're talking about jobs, Derek. Donald Trump on the campaign trail has been talking a lot about tariffs and how he would levy large tariffs on imported goods, as he did last time he was in office against steel and aluminum. Some Republicans have come out and said, you know what, I'm more of a free trade type of Republican. Where do you stand on supporting or opposing Donald Trump and on levying tariffs against things like, let's say, automobiles coming in from other countries, which would affect jobs in Michigan and Ohio?
Yes, Scott, I'm a free trader, but I want fair trade. And what we have right now is we have a lot of like the communist China, that subsidize specific industries and make it almost impossible for our U.S. companies to compete. So overall, I'm a free trader, but I think you got to look at a couple instances where it's just completely not fair. They're completely devaluing their own currency too, and making it impossible for our workers to compete. So I think you got to look at those products on an individual basis and make a determination. But I don't follow a person. I don't follow a party. I follow the Constitution and economic principles that have made our country great and putting America first. And I think that's where different for me is. Marcy Kaptur is 100% with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. I'm a proud Republican, but I tell people I'm a conservative before I'm a Republican. I'm a Christian before I'm a Republican, and I'm an American before I'm a Republican. And we got to look at actual policies that move America forward and Northwest Ohio forward.
I believe the Blade has offered a date for you and Marcy Kaptur to debate. Derek, has that been worked out? Will you and Marcy have a debate before Election Day?
Well, I've accepted the Blade's invitation for it to be an hour-long debate. It will be taped and broadcasted. To my knowledge, Marcy Kaptur has still not accepted. And, if you're going to try to lead Northwest Ohio, Scott, you owe it to the population to debate and let people ask you questions and be able to give an answer to. I mean, I don't think you've offered to allow Marcy Kaptur on her show, but apparently she's scared of Scott Sands. She can't handle Scott Sands, but she thinks she's going to solve the problems for Northwest Ohio. She can't handle the Toledo Blade, but she thinks, she can solve the problems of Ohio. You got to be willing, if you're going to be a leader of our community, you got to be willing to face the music. And what she doesn't want to do, she doesn't want to have to get in front of a camera and talk about how she believes grown men should be able to play women's sports. She doesn't want to have to get in front of the camera and talk about how she voted to raise taxes on Americans. She doesn't want to get in front of the camera and explain why she has voted repeatedly against securing our border. That's what she doesn't want to do. She knows she can't beat me one-on-one in a fair debate, and she's going to hide for as long as she can.
Derek Merrin, he's running for Congress here in Ohio's 9th. DerekMerrin.com is the website. Derek, we'll talk to you a lot, I'm sure, between now and November. We got 40 days until the election.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Let's get it. We're going to take our country back.
Mandel